Hi everyone, it's Professor Lenke. I just wanted to make a quick video to kind of let us get an idea of what we're doing this week. Um, Remember, we want to kind of start on the home page and we want to click on week 3. You can always click on the modules too to get a sense of what we're doing this week to look at the full overview of the week. But the way the modules are designed are for you to go through each page, read the content, and then complete the assignments in order. So you come back here, you click welcome or week 3 and start your week. So remember this landing page here. It's got a suggested due date on when you read the page, and then it's just got an idea, a kind of a brief overview of what we're doing for the week. It's got the class objectives, it's got the activities and assignments, and remember down here, we've got information about how you can get some extra support, whether it's coming to office hours, to meet with me one-on-one, to leaving questions in the Q&A, to working with tutors. So that's that page. And so we just click next. And so this is our weekly intention setting assignment. So remember, this is for you to either just kind of tell me how your week's going. It's a chance for you to ask questions about anything in the class. It's a chance for you to just kind of write a diary entry to yourself. And again, I kind of respond to you as you respond to me. So if you just write one sentence that says my intention this week is to complete my assignments, then I'll give you a little thumbs up and kind of move on. If you give me a longer couple sentences or a paragraph, then I'll respond to kind of whatever you're saying. And so the only requirements for this particular assignment is just to write a complete sentence. So that means writing a sentence that has a capital letter, a subject, verb, and complete thought. And we got to have that period at the end. So that's it, just one sentence, but of course you can write more. Okay, so you do that, that's due next Monday. So you do that, watch the video, click next. Okay. So this week we have a little activity. We're reading one of my favorite poems. I think that, as we get into our third week of classes, it's really important for us to understand that this is a very busy class because it's only a 12-week class. So the modules are pretty packed with information and activities for us to do to complete the objectives of this class, but also to remember that we're humans and our job is not to spend all day trying to complete activities and tasks and all that stuff, but to also, live our lives and love who we love and spend time with our loved ones and spend time, taking care of ourselves as well. So you'll read through this poem and then you'll answer the question, how does this poem connect with learning English or any other language? And so what we can kind of take away from that. So you're going to add your response. So you go down here, click the little button, add your name and your response. And I've left a little example here for us to look at. So you'll read the poem and then you'll click next. This is just a little page to add your nickname in Canvas in case there's something that you would want to be called other than the name on the roster. This is a way you can change it on Canvas so everyone can see that. So you go through, read the directions, and click next. Okay, so this is the thing about feedback. So as we start getting into our longer writing assignments, I'll be leaving you feedback, and this is kind of the way that I'll do that. And so sometimes I'll use these little symbols, and if you have a question on what those are, then this is the page for you. So you want to download the editing symbols, and then I've got an example here from one of my colleagues, Professor Whitset, on what it might look like, kind of in leaving feedback on sentences. And there's a little practice activity. This isn't for points this week. This is just for you to practice and to recognize what the signs and symbols might be when I'm leaving feedback. Okay, and then you click next. Go through. This is our grammar topic for the week, this idea of common parallel structure. So we want to be consistent with when we're writing. And I noticed this in the first 2 weeks where when we're listing things or when we're kind of writing things in order, we want to make sure that we're using this thing called parallel structure, where we either have the same tense in the verbs that we're listing, or we have the same types of adjectives in order, or so we'll take a look at that. There's 2 videos for us to watch and a little PowerPoint presentation to give us more information about that as well. Click next. This is talking about how we dummy it. So we talked a little bit about this last week, but we're going to jump in a little bit more. So it just kind of talks about this idea of sometimes we we don't have a clear subject where, you know, if we're trying to talk about the time and you say, oh, it's 11:40 right now. In a lot of languages, certainly Spanish, you just omit that subject. You just say 12 o'clock, right? Or is 12 o'clock. But in English, we need to have a subject and verb in each sentence. So we use this thing called the dummy it, where we use it to take the placeholder of something that isn't clear and apparent. So we watch this video, and then we just want to check our understanding. So this is a little grammar comprehension quiz. So again, this isn't like a real quiz. It's just a little comprehension check. There's just 6 questions about the dummy it method and parallel structure. So you'll just take those real quick. And you can take this as many times as you want until you get the score that you want. So please, if you see a couple that you get wrong, then retake the quiz and make sure you get them right. Okay, so now we're jumping into our second annotation task. So hopefully you have gotten the book by now. And so what we're doing is we're looking at one chapter from chapters 1 to 11. So we did a little bit of exploration on the introduction and one of the stories last week in our discussion board. This week, we're going to practice annotating one of those chapters. So again, the pink highlighting marks ideas that is going to relate to future writing topics. And so this week, we're kind of thinking about how it relates to the discussion topic this week. So how do we make a personal connection to whatever story we're reading? So again, you want to pick a different story than you read last week. They're fairly short. They're about 5 to 7 pages. And so you want to highlight ideas that relate to this idea of how can I make a personal connection to this author's story. Then you're going to use yellow highlighting for new vocabulary and then green highlighting for the key or main ideas of that chapter. I also want you to kind of interact with the text, and this means making questions and writing questions in the margins, or some of you have done like a separate Word document with questions. That works too. That's great. It helps us kind of think critically about the text when we're asking ourselves questions about what we're reading. And then you want to give your personal reaction. So this is just 1 or 2 sentences on what you felt about the chapter. And this is pretty connected to that idea of how can I make a personal connection to it. So these are more personal reactions. The pink highlights would be where can I make like a connection to something either in my own life or in my family's lives or some sort of real world experience. Okay. So once you're ready to submit, you can take a picture of your highlights. A couple of you made videos where you were showing me, you're going through the pages in the book and showing me and explaining your annotations. That's great, right? So, or you can save it as a PDF. That works too. All right, so you submit that, you click next. Then we go to our discussion board this week. So I put everyone in groups. So there's about 6 to 7 people in each group. And that way you'll have a little bit more personal kind of contact and discussion with those group members. So similar to last week, you're going to pick a story from chapters 1 to 11. So it should be a different story than you read last week. You want to tell your group what chapter number, what page number, what the speaker's name is, right? It's right in the bio. You want to summarize that chapter in just a few sentences, right? Just so we can get a sense of what that chapter was about in case we didn't read that one. And then in 1 and 2 sentences, you want to explain your personal connection to something in your personal life or to something in the real world and support that with reasoning, right? So if you're talking about an experience from Randall Park and what it was like for his family to move to Santa Monica and how he got into acting, right? You can talk about this, maybe an experience of someone you know or your parents or someone in your family of what it was like to move into a new country or move to a new place and have to kind of integrate yourself into the community. Then you should be leaving a response for 2 of your peers, and that should all be completed by Monday. So we want to make sure that we get those in. So you'll leave your replies, you click next. So last week, I saw that there are some somewhat basic responses, which is pretty normal for the first kind of few weeks of the semester. But now we want to get into a little bit more thoughtful replies to our classmates. So I included this page with some sentence starters to responding to your peers. So there's some general sentence starters, right? You make an interesting point, or I'm impressed that you talked about the story in this way, or I really like your ideas here. If you're going to reference an idea actually in their post, right, and you relate to something they said, then you can say, I also feel that way, or like you said, or like you wrote, I connect with that way. right? If you have this similar perspective, you can say, oh, I feel the same way as you, or I can relate to what you wrote. And then if you see something that maybe is a little bit different than your own perspective, then there's some sentence starters to get you started here as well, right? I had a slightly different reaction than you, or I see what you're saying and it's interesting, but I have a little bit of different perspective. And I think this will be really helpful for responding to peers who may have read the same story but got a different reaction from you. So these are just to help you kind of craft your response to your classmates. And so that's it for the week, right? So again, we kind of recap the objectives, and next week we're going to start working on our final or on our first writing assignment. So you want to review the 2 stories and America's introduction, and then go back and kind of read through the discussion posts to get a sense of what your peers read and what they thought about the stories as we move into our writing task next week. So you click next. Right, this is where you can leave a question for me or for anyone else, right? These are Q&As, they're optional, you don't have to do this, but if you post a question on here, then everyone can see it. So if you see a question on there that you know the answer to, then feel free to jump in and answer it. If not, I'll answer it myself, okay? And so that's it for the week. And as always, please reach out to me if you have questions or if you have ideas or if you need some help with something or some extra support, I'm always here. Yeah, good to see everyone. See you next week. Bye.